Okay, you're welcome back to today's class. My name is Amadi Chile, and on this Sunday's class, you're going to learn about CSS, grid. What is grid? How to apply grid to your project, adding spaces, how to repeat columns of same unit, how to use grid auto rows and grid auto columns, how to use the min-max function, and how to use auto fit. So let's begin with the first one. What is grid? CSS grid layout is a two-dimensional layout system for the web. It lets you organize content into rows and columns and offers many features to simplify the creation of complex layout. So by this definition, we see that a grid is more advanced than flex. But what is a grid layout? A grid layout is a collection of horizontal and vertical lines, creating a pattern against which we can line up our design elements. They help us to create layouts in which our elements won't jump around or change width as we move from page to page, providing greater consistency on our website. A grid will typically have columns, rows, and then gaps between each row and column. The gaps are commonly referred to as gutters. So how can we add or apply grid to our project? So here is just a simple example of how we can do that. We'll have a container, then we're going to add this property, display grid, and we're going to add grid template columns. So let's put this into practice and it will help us to understand it more. So I'll go to my VS Code. So I have this basic setup and the CSS. So let's do the markup for this grid example. So I'm going to have a section. It must not be a section 8. It can be any block tag, or it can be any tag at all. But it is usually best to it can be any tag at all, because just like a flex, display properties can be used to change the behavior of the default way a tag display. But if you're using flex and grid, then it will have a common parent. So I have a section tag. I'll now give it a class of grid just for just the way I want to do it, but the class name does not matter. The next, we need 6 boxes or 6 children for this parent tag. So I have dot box 1 times 6. So I have that. So I have box 1, box 2, box 3, box 4, box 5, box 6. The next, we need to change this. So we have 6, 5, 4, 3, and 2. And this one is like that. So if I save, I'll have this. I know by default the div tag displays in block. So let us add the CSS now to apply grid to this our grid container. So I'm going to type dot grid, remember, then display grid. So if I type this, see that nothing happens. Yes. For grid, you must specify the number of columns at least before you're going to see any effect. So I'm going to type the next thing, grid template columns. I'm going to type 200 pixel space 200 pixel space 200 pixel. So now if I save, you notice that this is column 1, this is column 2, and this is column 3. And if I maximize this, see how it looks. It doesn't stretch yet. So move to the next, adding spaces and how to repeat columns of same unit. So let's go back to our VS Code. So how do I add a space between these? So the shorthand method is to use gap. For say add 1 arrow em. So see, so this, it has taken effect on the row, but this is a shorthand method that means put the row gap and the column gap. But for because we have not done some other stuff, you won't notice this column gap unless we give this a border. So let's do the next one. Next one now is how to repeat use the repeat function if the units are the same. So this. Now for this, just said three columns like this, it can, it might not be a problem, but what of if you want to not type maybe like 6 or 10? See that it can be a problem. So that is the reason for this repeat function. As long as the these units are the same, then you can use the this repeat function. So I'm going to type the number that I want, which is 3, then 200 pixel. So you see there's no, it's still the same. Now the beauty about this function now is if I add this to 6, so you notice it's stretched to 6 all the way if I expand. So it means this has worked. So let's move to the next. How to use grid auto rows and grid auto columns. Now note, grid auto columns has no effect if grid template columns have been specified, and as you can see from this example, there is no grid template columns. But what is the work of this grid auto rows and this grid auto columns? Where grid auto rows can be used to specify the height, the default height of the grid item. Then why the grid auto columns can be used to set the default width of the grid item. So let's see how this works as we move on, as we go back to our code. So I have to comment this out, but before I comment it out, let's add a border to each of these, to each of the boxes, div. So you recall that for each of this grid item, they have the same, I'm using the same tag, which is div. So that's why I can use the CSS. So border one pixel solid, let's use black. So you notice how it is now. So let us do the one of the grid auto row first, because that one can work with this statement here, active. So grid auto rows, remember it specifies the default height, so I'll put 100 pixel, and notice how it has grown. Now if I specify the grid auto columns as maybe 200 pixel, you notice you won't see any difference. So, and that is why we need to send this out. So if I remove this, you notice how it looks. So by default, it will stretch all over this box by default, because by default a block tag will occupy the full width of the available space. So if I add this now, you see, if I increase it to 300, you see how it increases. If I increase to 500, see how it increases. Now if I expand this, you see how it is. So this is how you can use the grid auto columns. But just know that you won't see the effect if you have grid template columns active. So let's move to the next one. How to use the min max function. Now we'll activate this grid auto columns, this grid template columns again. Then we're not going to use this min max. Now what does this mean? This one, it means that this min here means for the first parameter of this function, it will means the value for the minimum size that the grid item will be. Then the max, which is the second one, is the maximum it can stretch to. So this is like this is specifying like the grow. It is like the flex, shrink, and grow. For this, so that is how it works. But I think this min max is not unique to grid. So let's see how this works. So go back to our screen. So I'm going to comment this out and activate this. Now if I save this now, so one of the application of the min max would be to not specify, will be used to add a behavior just like the min height, because we know that the grid auto rows sets the default height of the grid item. So supposing that the content of this box grows, how will it handle it? Well, to answer that question, let's use an example. So I'm going to use this box. Sorry, I've made a mistake. Okay, it's not a mistake. This one is meant to be box 2. This is meant to be box 3. So if I come here and just use some text, say Lauren, Z, and I save, you notice that there is an overflow. So if the content of this box 2 is demanding more space than we specified in our grid auto rows, then you see it causes an overflow. So in order to solve this, if it was on this normal CSS, if you're not using grid, we'll just use the min height. But to do that now, we'll use the min max. So min max. So I'm going to specify that the minimum will be 100 pixel and then the maximum will be auto, so it means it can stretch. And if I save this now, you notice that it has stretched to accommodate the text. So this is one application of the min max, and as we go on, we'll see other applications. So next is how to use auto fit. So first of all, what does the auto fit do? Now, the default behavior of the grid container is the number of columns that you specify it will keep maintaining that specified number of columns, even though there is much space. Let's say we specify 2 columns, and based on the width of the grid item, it can contain 4 or 6, but the default behavior is that it will just contain it will obey and maintain just that 2 columns. So you can use the grid auto fit to make the grid container to put as many boxes or as many items in line until there's no more space, then it can go to the next row. So this is one of the application, or this is one of the behavior of the auto fit. So let's see how this works. So let's assume I have I specified these 2 before. So now I notice that these 2 comes to this side. Now if I expand, you notice that it didn't come back here. So if I specify, if I use the auto fit here, auto fit, so let's check. So now you notice stretch all the way. So you see, so this auto fit behavior is like flex wrap. So let's add that one here. So I can add the mean max and say the minimum should be 100 and the maximum should let's say auto. You see that it didn't work as expected. Sorry, I didn't put my unit pixel. So you know, this height work and this height behaves. So let me put the maximum to be 200 pixel. So notice how this height it behaves, this height behaves. So this is just a basic class of how you can use grid. Now grid is more advanced, so there are similar things that you can do with grid. Like you can use grid to design the full layout of a complex website, and then use another discrete parameter, which I think you use the discrete templates area or the line method to not specify where you want those items to be and reorder them. Just the way you want at different screen sizes. But I don't want to bore you with that. But I believe if you can understand this basic, then on your own you can understand the advanced. So thank you very, very much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. In the next video for this week, we are not going to put together all what we have learned from week 1 to this week 4 to see how we can design exactly what we are given in a Figma design. So I'll see you in that video.